Welcome. It's really a pleasure once again to have an opportunity to talk to someone who has been one of the pioneers in helping the Renaissance here in Newark, New Jersey. Some of the additions that have been made have been visions that have occurred from years before now, especially in the time frame that we're in. And I'm here with the pleasure of being able to talk once again with Mr. John Schreiber. John Schreiber is the president and CEO of the New Jersey Performing Arts Center. And he has been able to pick up on a number of different other missions that we're going to really involve ourselves with discussing.
Great.
Some of the most wonderful attributes that has occurred has been the passion that John has in the field of jazz, and I have become one of those individuals, and I'm very happy that we can talk about some of those projects as well. But John, thank you so much once again. It's really good that you're open to, I would say, the independent broadcaster. Okay, I've looked over the internet and I've seen that you have spoken with some of the heavyweights in this industry, and to give me a chance to be able to talk to you, it's just phenomenal. I really appreciate it again. Thank you so much.
Very sweet to say that. I'm happy to talk. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's really an opportunity that I want to take for a few moments to delve a little bit into your past history, because it will culminate the discussion into how you have been able to catapult the mission and the vision of the New Jersey Performing Arts Center in such a short period of time. Let's talk a little bit about your background.
Sure.
You grew up in the Queens area.
I grew up in Hollis, Queens, right?
Okay.
And when I was a little boy, I lived on the last stop on the E and the F train,
Okay.
right? So in those days, in the mid-1960s, I would take that train into Manhattan, and I would go and buy a ticket in the balcony to see a Broadway show. And I started going to the theater when I was very young, started listening to music when I was very young, and I always loved it. And I always sort of had in the back of my mind the thought that maybe I'd get to do that when I grew up. So it was an original passion.
And looking at it from that perspective, it helped you grow into the areas of being able to take on a responsibility with the jazz festivals. Let's talk about the Newark Jazz Festival a little bit. Excuse me, the Newport Jazz Festival.
Oh, the Newport Jazz Festival. So about 40 years ago, a little longer, I left college, and I had produced a concert series at my college, and the only thing we could afford was jazz musicians, right? And the first artist that I produced was a wonderful British pianist who you know, named Marion McPartland. And I loved working with her. I loved putting shows on for the kids. And Marion said to me, you know, you're pretty good at this. Have you thought about doing this for a living? She said, I know a guy who actually does this. And it was George Wein, who founded the Newport Jazz Festival in 1954. And when I left school in 1976, Newport had moved to New York, and it was a festival that took place in Carnegie Hall and Lincoln Center and the Staten Island Ferry and Central Park, and it was a 10-day, 100-event celebration, Newport in New York. And that was the thing that I walked into as a kid. It was my first job. And I was a production assistant, and I dragged drums around and set up sound systems and got coffee from Max Roach, and I did whatever they wanted me to do.
Okay.
And it was a wonderful introduction to musicians and to music, and I stayed with George for 18 years.
Wow.
I never left. And over the course of that time, I got to work on jazz festivals all across America, in Japan, and in Europe, in South America. I got to work. That was a time when the Giants still roamed the earth, when we could do a festival, and on one night we'd have Oscar Peterson and Stan Getz, on another night we'd have Count Basie and George Benson, on another night we'd have Sarah Vaughan and Bill Evans, on another night we'd have Benny Goodman and Charlie Mingus. They were all there. They were all still working, and and it was a time of great music and great opportunity. The festivals we produced around the country were called the Cool Jazz Festivals.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And they took place in concert halls, but they also took place in stadiums.
Okay.
So we would do a stadium show, you know, in Pontiac, Michigan, and you'd have Stevie Wonder and the Aretha and the Tops and the Temps and Ashford and Simpson, and George always saw to it that there were at least one or two legitimate jazz acts on that show.
Ooh.
So you'd also have an artist like Dizzy Gillespie, or you would have Benny Carter and Sweet Addison or whatever. And these jazz artists would play in front of crowds of 30 or 40,000 people. And for many of the audience, it was the first time they'd heard great jazz artists live. They bought a ticket to see Stevie Wonder. They weren't expecting to see Dizzy.
Okay.
And I would say to George, why did you do that? And he'd say, because if 1% of that audience goes to the record store the next day and buys a Dizzy album, right, and gets introduced to this music, we've done our job. So,
wow.
So it was a great time and a great education, and it was a kind of my upbringing in the music business.
Okay. So it has been a true inspiration, and the genius of a number of the concepts that you have been able to create really transcends into the opportunity to get new artists, a relationship that they can be able to hopefully build a strong career from. Looking at now, you coming in 2011, I believe it was?
That's right.
And in 2011, when you became the president and CEO, obviously you filled some pretty big shoes.
Right.
And you still have a relationship with Larry Goldman. Let's talk a little bit about that relationship.
Well, Larry did something that I don't think many other people could have done. He built the Art Center with a collaborative effort with Sharp James and with Governor Kane and with Ray Chambers and with others. He built it from the ground up, and then he ran it.
Yeah.
And it's rare for a builder to be an operator.
Okay.
Right? And he was here for 22 years.
Right.
And he did something that a lot of people thought couldn't happen, right? He built the last great performing arts center in America in the 20th century.
Yeah.
And when I arrived, this place was cooking in many different ways. There was a very robust arts education program that was existent, and distinct programming. And I could never have done what Larry did, right? I couldn't have built this building.
Listen to you.
Right? But what I had done over, at that point, 30 years of working, is I developed relationships with different artists, and I had programmed and produced lots of shows in lots of different places around lots of different genres. So this was a great canvas to work on.
How about that? Yeah.
And the first thing we did was I talked to Linda Moody, who was James Moody's widow.
Right.
And I had been friends with Moody and Linda previously, and I said to Linda, because Moody was a Newarker, I said, we want to create a signature jazz event, and we want to name it after Moody, and we want Moody's spirit to be present in this festival, right? She said, great. So at the same time, I reached out to a young man that I had known since he was 14, and that was Christian McBride.
Really?
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, I produced a jazz festival in Philadelphia for many years called the Mellon Jazz Festival. And I had Dizzy down in Philly, because Dizzy spent a lot of his youth in Philadelphia. So Philadelphia felt like they had a native son in Dizzy, right? So I took Dizzy to a middle school to hear a jazz band. And the bass player in that middle school jazz band was Christian McBride. And Dizzy was listening to the band, and he said, we picked Christian out. And he said, who is that kid? He's a monster. he sounds amazing. And I said, I don't know who that kid is. And then we went and met that kid afterwards. And that kid was Christian McBride.
Wow.
And we have stayed in touch ever since. And when I got to Newark, Christian, who lives in Montclair, was one of my first calls, and I said, we want you to be the Art Center's jazz advisor, and we want you to help us program the best people, the most diverse cross-section of people, and we want you to help us build audiences for jazz, and we also want you to work with our kids, because we have a jazz program as part of our arts education initiatives. And he said, great. So this has been a lot of fun, and of course every year with a jazz festival you get to start over again.
Wow,
you get to reinvent it, right?
Yeah.
You're not obliged to do anything the same if you don't feel like it, right? So that is one of the fun things about programming the Moody Festival. And the other thing we did when we started the Moody Festival was we started a jazz vocal competition. And we named that after Sarah Vaughan, another Newarker. And every year now, we've done this now for I think 7 years, almost 1,000 singers from around the world send in their work to be considered. And we always close out the festival with an award ceremony and a finals where all the young singers sing.
The genius of that combination has become very aggressive in regard to promoting the city of Newark and the Performing Arts Center, and it has really created another generation of followers, which has been pretty much your primary interest. And how do we continue to develop that following? And I guess uniquely enough, the question was asked, why would the Performing Arts Center want to get involved in housing development?
Oh, real estate.
And now you have the one
Theater Square.
The One Theater Square.
Yeah.
And it was almost 2 decades in the making.
Yeah.
You come in, and in less than 6 years, it's up, and people are living in it. How did you do that?
Well, I didn't do it. I mean,
Okay.
I was a part of a team that did it, and you have to go back 30 years to when Governor Kane first had the idea for a performing arts center, and he said that it is important to save land around the Performing Arts Center for future development.
Okay.
And he looked at Lincoln Center, which was built in the late 1950s, and Lincoln Center only saved enough land to build their theaters.
Oh.
So if you look at Lincoln Center, you'll see there's about 6 theaters that surround a plaza, and then there's a plaza, and then there's the Upper West Side, right?
Yeah.
And Governor Kane said, if we do our job right, the Arts Center can be the basis or the foundation for a larger community.
Okay.
That was really visionary on his part. And Larry Goldman, my predecessor, was the head of real estate at Carnegie Hall.
Okay.
So he was a real estate guy.
Yeah.
So they saved the land, and about 10 years ago, they announced that they were going to build a residential tower across the street, and that was the first part of the development.
Right.
So they did that in 2008, 11 years ago, and then the recession hit.
Right.
And so that was a couple of years of waiting for the economy to come back. And then over a period of time working with the city, the state of New Jersey, Prudential, Carl Dranoff was our developer, all these collaborators never gave up, and we built the building, and people started moving in last July.
How about that?
In fact, my fiance and I have an apartment.
That's
in that
right.
building,
Yeah.
so we're
Isn't that? Oh,
now Newarkers, right?
that's awesome, though.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and to look at it in terms of the inspiration and the spirit, there is still a phenomenal amount of planning. You're talking about doing a hotel.
We're talking about a lot of things. We're talking about the possibility of a film center, a hotel,
Okay.
you know, any number of, and more residential. But this is an opportunity for growth and development that is a combination of assets that drive our mission, education aspects, cultural aspects, other entertainment venues, residential, more residential, so that the downtown has a greater population, and the fundamentals of a arts and education district.
Okay.
Right?
That's
includes
awesome.
here,
Yeah.
but also includes Rutgers Newark,
Right.
includes the Newark Museum,
That's brilliant.
includes the Newark Public Library, military
It becomes a hub.
Washington Park, right. We want people to come to Newark, and we want them to spend the day, we want them to spend the weekend. We want them to decide to live here. We want this to be a 24/7 live, work, play district.
Okay.
And so I think that's in the cards in the next 5, 10, 15 years.
One of the other things that is very important for us to mention is the expansion to Asbury Park. Why was that concept so important?
Well, the Art Center is a New Jersey Performing Arts Center. And we had an opportunity with the real estate developers, Madison Marquette, who own a lot of the boardwalk in Asbury, and who also own the Paramount Theater and the Convention Hall in Asbury. And they're not promoters, they are a real estate company, but they understand how cultural venues activate community. And they also were aware of the community engagement work and the education work that we do here every day. And so we sat with them, and they said, we would like to be your partner, and we'd like you to do shows in those theaters, and we'd also like you to bring your education work into Asbury as well. Asbury is a community that is, I think, 47% African American. And Asbury, to an extent, is kind of a tale of two cities, right? So we saw this as a great opportunity to sort of extend our mission and program in a community that is on a rise, and also to make education initiatives available in schools where they haven't been.
I see.
So this has been a really happy marriage between us. The City Fathers in Asbury are really happy we're there.
Okay.
And it's a way for us to extend our brand, too.
And you continue to have a stellar team that is accomplishing many of the areas that have been started with people like Phil Thomas and others in terms of arts education and developing ways in which you can do community outreach. When we think in terms of community outreach and how it has effectively grown, you came in with a decision that you wanted to make an opportunity for community residents to be able to afford to come here. How has that worked?
It works in different ways. So when we made a conscious decision to create a unit of our business called Community Engagement, and I got somebody that I have known for many years who really kind of wrote the book on diversity marketing and engaging audiences, and that was Donna Walker-Kuhn. I did a show at the Apollo Theater in Harlem called Harlem Song almost 20 years ago, and our goal with that show, which was a celebration of the history of Harlem, musical celebration. George Wolfe was the director. He did Bring in the Noise, Bring in the Funk, and Shuffle Along, among other things. And I said to Donna, we want that show to erase the invisible line between 96th Street in Upper Manhattan, right? We want to, and that show ran for 6 months at the Apollo and delivered the most diverse audiences the Apollo had ever gotten. Right? We said, aha, you know, we can succeed by programming to diverse audiences in an excellent way. And Newark, as you know, is a city that is a poor city, right? Economically challenged city. The average family income, I believe, in the city of Newark is about $35,000, right? So what do? So, because we want the Arts Center to be for everybody, people who can afford to spend $80 on a ticket and people who can't. So we developed this department, and this department now does almost 200 events a year throughout Greater Newark. Free events, free cultural events, dance workshops, jazz jam sessions, program we do called Books on the Move, which is a literacy program for young children, and other community initiatives. And they're delivered for free into neighborhoods and in a variety of venues, community centers, church basements, city parks, you name, libraries.
Yeah, the Jazz Vespers, and a number of different initiatives. Yeah.
And so we say everybody should come. You don't have to come to NJPAC to have an NJPAC experience.
Wow,
right?
That's awesome.
And there's no expectation that somebody has to buy a ticket to see something here. However, every show we have is priced across 5 or 6 different categories. So there are inexpensive tickets as well as expensive tickets, attraction by attraction.
So people can still have an opportunity to enjoy the performing arts.
We also have a ticket subsidy fund
Okay.
where we make tickets available to nonprofits at a severely reduced price.
Okay.
So we do the best we can to bring the arts where people are and then encourage people to come here and experience the arts. And of course, we have our summer concert series that that we've done forever, which is Sounds of the City, where on any given night, 4,000 to 6,000 people will show up to hear music, and then our education programs, where we train hundreds of kids a year here at our conservatory. No kid is turned away based on means, so we scholarship significantly in that program. And then our school time programs, where we bring young students in to hear performances and watch performances here. The average ticket price for those are, I think, $6. So it's a real range of pricing around all of our attractions.
Which is wonderful. And looking at the opportunity where you put together the stellar team, that you have Christian McBride, Savion Glover, and others, it's really making an impact. It's continuing the tradition of what the PAC was really here for, and the appreciation of the Renaissance. We want to thank you very much for the effort that you have been making. You seem to be happy. There's a sparkle in your eye every time you talk about the wonderful opportunities that you have here and what you've been able to bring and continue to bring. And we just wanted to bring it to our audience, and we really appreciate you, and thank you very much for all the contributions you've made.
I thank you for everything that you do for our community every day and have done for many years.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
And thank you for tuning in. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right. Appreciate it.